Last season, Mizzou was one of the biggest surprises in the conference, finishing fourth in the SEC standings and getting a bid to the NCAA tournament as a 7 seed. That trip was cut short by the Princeton Tigers in the second round, but nonetheless, a season that I feel like Tiger fans should feel really darn good about. There's no denying what Mizzou has been doing on the recruiting trail this offseason, and there's plenty of optimism about the future. But we're talking about this season. Maddie, I'm a little higher than most on Mizzou this year. I've got a lot more faith in Dennis Gates than others, but what are your thoughts on the Missouri Tigers?
We talked about him a lot last season, and Dennis Gates is a fantastic coach, and he proved it last year. I think he's done well in recruiting to bring in some of those missing puzzle pieces that we saw last season in their loss to Princeton, kind of ending their run a little early. So I'm interested to see if those new transfers that he got, the new talent that he's bringing to Columbia, it'll be interesting to see where he's going to take this team this year.
Yeah, definitely so. Well, today on the show, we have Maggie Johnson from Mizzou, That's Who, sharing her thoughts on the Tigers today on the Hoops Southbound Show.
The Tennessee Volunteers are going to the Sweet 16.
Florida takes its place in history. Back-to-back and unforgettable.
Three-pointer on the way. No good. Falls with the dunk at the buzzer. It goes in Arkansas wins.
And the Kentucky coronation is complete.
We are in the Home Field Apparel studio where they know college and make some of the best game day clothes you've ever seen. Today, we are talking to Maggie Johnson about the Missouri Tigers. Maggie, how you doing today?
I'm good, and I'm actually in a home field shirt as well.
So look at that. See, this is product placement at its best.
Not even on purpose, totally accidental. So just throwing that out there.
I mean, I was supposed to wear mine the other day. I just found it. Maddie was giving me some heck about the fact that I lost mine the other day. But no, they're great shirts. Love them to death. Use promo code Variety Sports while you're at it. 15% off. Love that. Just easy product placement today. This isn't going to get confusing, by the way, at all, because we have Maggie and Maddie on the show. So hopefully we get this entirely, sorted out. If I say, hey, you, we'll figure it out. But we'll get it going today. All right. Maggie, we're going to start out with a little bit of buy or BS. This is normally our surprise on the guests, so we're just going to throw these out here. We're going to give you a prompt. Feel free to give us the explanation and let us know if you're buying it or if it's BS. Okay. All right, I'll start this off. Mizzou will be a much improved rebounding team this season.
Oh, okay. I'm actually going to buy that because I think they've brought in some people that are a little bit more athletic, they're taller. That was a big issue for us. We just didn't have those athletes that could do that last year. We had Kobe, but everybody else were mainly perimeter shooters that really didn't crash the boards. So I'm going to buy that. I think we're going to rebound a little bit better. Fingers crossed, at least. Can't get any worse.
Yeah, it literally can't. Like the stats say it can't. All right, Maddie, what's your buy or BS?
All right, Maggie, brought up those perimeter shooters. So speaking of, Nick Honor will lead the SEC in 3-point percentage this season.
Oh, yeah, I think I'm going to go with BS on that one. I do, with Nick Honor, I do think that we don't need him to be a big shooter, okay? But we do need him to be a shooting threat. That's all I really want, is for him to be a threat with the ball. But I don't think that he's going to lead the SEC in 3 points.
I want to note that
he only shoots a couple of them.
I do want to note that every time we've asked someone about like a shooter on their team and like they're going to lead the SEC in 3-point shooting, everybody has sold it. Like not a soul has bought that yet. So
I don't see it happening.
Yeah, no one's buying this confidence in their shooters. All right, so our last one, and this seems to be the big question this season. Obviously, Mizzou is going to be great next year with all the recruits that are coming in, but there's some thought out there about this being possibly a step back year. So Mizzou will make the NCAA tournament this year.
Okay, so if you would have asked me this a week ago, I may have said BS, but I am actually going to buy in because from what I've been hearing, they're a little bit better than what I thought that they might be. The chemistry is there. So I'm going to buy it.
Interestingly enough, I'm bigger on Mizzou than a lot of people in the like around the country. I know Maddie actually also has Mizzou in her top 5 front backcourts this season. So we're kind of with you. I definitely think that Mizzou is going to be one of those teams that'll be super competitive this season. All right, let's turn to the roster and take a look at this. Maggie, we asked everybody, of course, including yourself, for one player to really take a hard look at this season. Doesn't have to be a superstar, but someone you think everybody should pay attention to on this Mizzou team. Who's your player to watch?
So my player to watch is actually, he's not even a starter, but I'm going to go with Shawnee the second. I think, so he's the backup point guard to Nick Honor, but I really think he just knows how to slow the game down. I really like watching him. He's not a very emotional player. Wasn't a great shooter last year, but he's really worked on his shooting in the offseason. Last Friday, we had our Mizzou Madness at the Columns. If you've never been to Mizzou, we have this really cool, iconic columns on our quad. They're really beautiful. You've got to visit if you ever come up to Columbia. He actually won our 3-point contest. I think his shooting's vastly improved from last year. Really looking forward to seeing how he shoots. I did write down the second one for this, and it's Caleb Grill, our transfer from Iowa State. Great 3-point shooter, also a great rebounder. Kind of reminds me of Matt Lawrence, if you followed basketball from when Mike Anderson was actually at Mizzou in the late 2000s. Just a great perimeter shooter, crashes the boards. Really looking forward to seeing what he brings to Mizzou as well.
I like it. It's the signature right there from last year from Dennis Gates. Sorry about that with the 3-point shooting. So yeah, no, definitely makes sense to me. Maddie, who do you have?
All right, so this year I'm going to take a look at a newcomer for Mizzou in John Tonji. In his 4 years at Colorado State, he joined the 1,000-point club, which is pretty rare, especially with someone who's still got some time left in his tenure. He ranked second on the team during the 22-23 season with a career best of 14.6 points, setting personal best with a shooting percentage of 47.3% and a 3-point clip of 38.9. Over the summer, he played with the Cameroon national team, so he's got some experience meshing with new teammates, which I think will be a big help for this Mizzou team this season.
I like the pick a lot. Obviously, anybody who's got some international basketball experience, they're playing next level while they're still in college. We've seen Adu do it also over there for Tennessee with playing for the under-19 U.S. team this offseason. So, yeah, I like the pick a lot. The guy I've got my eye on is Noah Carter. Yeah, I'm finally bucking my trend here on these previews and picking somebody who's actually been on the roster for a little while. He's going to be asked to step up a lot this season for the Tigers. Last year, we saw Carter's fouls increase, points per game decrease, and rebounds also decrease last season. And of course, Maddie, the thing that drives you absolutely nuts is free throw percentage decrease. But I think that has a lot to do with being in a new system. Last season, a year under Gates now, he's an upperclassman. He's had several games throughout the last year where he showed his ceiling is significantly higher than where the numbers are necessarily at. I'm excited to see how much he's advanced in a full year under Gates, and I also expect him to be a leader on this team. He was voted a captain in training, and he's going to be a significant piece, in my opinion, for Mizzou's front court this season. And speaking of that front court, let's talk about it. I know Maddie really likes Mizzou's backcourt, but we both expressed our concerns in the front court this offseason. Guys, what do you think about Mizzou's front court? Maggie, we'll start with you.
Well, yeah, you guys are no stranger to Connor Vanover, obviously.
Oh, I know Connor quite well.
Yeah, I think you guys do. Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about what he can do on the Power 5 level. I think he was a great, addition to a team like Oral Roberts. I think that's exactly the type of school that he would thrive in. I don't know how he's going to do back in the SEC. I think he works well in the perimeter. I just don't know how many minutes he's actually going to play. I remember the last few games I was watching him when he played at Arkansas, and he kind of went out there and he did the jump ball, and then he kind of didn't really play a lot after that. So I'm not sure if that's going to be a similar situation. I have heard really good things about they call him Zeus, the transfer from Campbell. I've heard really good things about his rebounding ability. I'm not sure, again, about his shooting. He played injured a lot. So that scares me a little bit too. I get nervous about our foul trouble because obviously that was a big issue last year when once Kobe would get in foul trouble, all we really had was Noah Carter. So if we get in foul trouble with these players, I don't know what we're going to do. I've heard amazing things about Trent Pierce, but he's a true freshman. So I'm really not sure. It makes me just as nervous as it makes you. I know Aiden Shaw, I think, is probably the most athletic player that's on our roster. Has he improved enough to be a very valuable asset as a sophomore? I don't know again.
Yeah, I totally get you. There's a lot of unknowns. And you were talking about Connor Vanover. Some of the stats, he did amazing at Oral Roberts. He averaged over 7 rebounds a game, 12.7 points per game, and was 51.7. But we saw those numbers drastically decline when he was put up against P7 opponents. And by the way, those P7 opponents last year included Tulsa, and where it decreased to 6.3 rebounds, 8.3 points, and he was only 30% from the floor as a big. So it is a kind of a concern. But the thing is Mizzou got through this last year without having a player I really like, though, Jordan Butler. I'm very interested to see in his development because he's got some of that same range that Connor Vanover has. And I frankly think he might be a better athlete. Maddie, what are your thoughts before we move on to the backcourt?
Yeah, just to follow up on y'all's comments on Connor Vanover, looking at
this is going to be a
Mizzou-
big conversation, isn't it? It's going to be Connor Vanover between 2 Arkansas fans and a Mizzou fan, isn't it, Maddie?
It might. But the thing that concerns me really was how fast Mizzou was last season. Connor Vanover, bless his heart, it was like he was running with cement in his basketball shoes. And with as fast as Mizzou's going to move this season, I think they're going to keep a similar pace. It's gonna be a struggle. Kobe Brown was a much better, well-rounded athlete, somebody who could move up the floor, jump up to get a rebound, put Mizzou in a somewhat decent place there. But with him gone, Connor Vanover, and still kind of question marks and other pieces like Jordan Butler, Aiden Shaw. It's not looking great.
It's the head scratcher. It is the head scratcher on this team. Let's talk about the thing we're much more optimistic in, and that's the backcourt. Let's go ahead and move on to there. By the way, Maddie, to your point, I believe that Mizzou, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I do believe Mizzou did finish somewhere in the top 4. I think ultimately Alabama did finish number 1 in pace. But I do believe Mizzou did finish somewhere in the top 4. They may have even been number 2. I just can't remember right now. But let's talk about this backcourt. Maddie, you had it in your top 5, so why don't you kick us off and tell us how much you love this Mizzou backcourt?
Well, like I said, they moved quick last season, and that honestly was something that worked for them. I guess when you can outrun your opponent, you're going to be able to score a lot more often. Kind of throwing it back to the early Laker days with Maggie Johnson and Kareem when they had that run and gun offense. But with Nick Honor, Shawnee's coming back, I think, we see a good trend here in these players who are going to come back, kind of lead the way for some of these newer pieces, like I mentioned with Tanji, Caleb Grill that Maggie mentioned earlier. I really think that they're going to do well in the system and be able to make the backcourt of Mizzou at least successful here.
Maggie, what are your thoughts on this backcourt? Like Maddie said, a lot of returners that we're interested in, like Nick Honor and Shawnee, is 100%, but some good transfers as well.
Yeah, for sure. And, like you said, we love if we can improve our rebounding, which is, going to be huge. We love to score in transition. That we scored a lot of points last year in transition. I don't see that changing because last year, because of the height differential in most of our games, because of foul trouble that we got in, we relied on those points because setting up an offense didn't really work in our favor. So I think we're going to also, again, because of the not strength of, I guess, our weakness in our front court, I think we're going to rely on that again. I am excited to see what Kurt Lewis is going to do. He was the National JUCO Player of the Year a couple of years ago. Sean East II was also that player, that National JUCO Player of the Year. He shot 48% from three, 52% from the field in his campaign to win that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I'm excited about our backcourt. I was trying to think about who our starting five were going to be, because they've been, pretty hush-hush. The only two I'm really certain about at this current moment are Nick Honor and Noah Carter, because everybody else is, basically new. So I'm not even sure who those players are going to be. I think I have a projected lineup, but I'm not positive. So yeah, I'm excited to see who is going to fill those positions on the backcourt, because it's talented. Ahead. It's talented.
Yeah, it's very talented. I'm with you 100%. No, I'm looking right now at the turnover list, or the transfer roster turnover list for this season. And it's nuts. You're right. Nick Honor, Noah Carter, Shawnee. You would probably think some of these guys are going to be back where they should be, somewhere in the starting rotation, but you got a lot of really good transfers in here. So coming up with the starting five is going to be interesting on that first game of the season. So it'll be intriguing to see who goes where for that first game against UAPB. And speaking of, let's go ahead and turn it into the schedule here. Obviously, first game, as I mentioned, against Arkansas Pine Bluff. I think we're all in agreement. Mizzou takes a W on this one. Or do we have any disagreement on this one? Because as much as I've been diving into mid-major basketball, getting ready for the mid-major report, I'm not too big on UAPB this season. So let's talk about the next game. Mizzou takes on a very serious Memphis team at home. Memphis, a couple players to know. Alabama transfer Javon Quinterly was already named first team All-American Conference just this morning, I believe, or it was yesterday. And then you got Jaquan Walton, Florida State transfer, Caleb Mills. List goes on. Mizzou does have home court. Thoughts on this game? It's a huge opportunity for your net and resume.
I'm nervous about it for sure. I know last year they had a win against Auburn. I think they lost to Alabama by 3 points. They beat A&M, who had a very good season, I would say, for Texas A&M, who is not at all a basketball school, I would say. Yeah, they just ran into a hot FAU team in the tournament. I think that they could have, made a Sweet 16 run, at the very least. I'm very nervous about this. I think, we just played them in football and their fans were not amped for that game. They will be amped. And I think that there will be Memphis fans in Como for that game.
Oh, there's 100%.
That's a drive. That's far, but I think they will be amped for that game.
I can tell you, someone who grew up in Eastern Arkansas or Central Arkansas, Memphis fans are a totally different breed when it comes to basketball season. I know, because Maddie's one of them also. Maddie, your thoughts on Memphis and what Penny's going to do in that game, or do you think Gates has this one?
I think this is going to be a real kind of wake-up call in their second game here. I think Mizzou is going to have to, face a tougher opponent, which they weren't exactly used to in the preseason last year. So hopefully they're able to kind of mesh well in that UAPB game, figure out, the drawbacks from the game, what they need to work on, and get it worked out before they go play a Memphis team. I believe Penny.
I don't think he gets to coach that game.
I was about to say, I
don't think he does. No.
So that might be Dennis Gates' secret sauce and the winning recipe there.
I think he'll have him ready. He'll have him ready, but it might help us out.
Having home court's going to be huge also. Let's not forget, that's a huge portion of basketball, is having that home court advantage. It's going to be a tough game, and I got to congratulate Mizzou for embracing competition in that one so early in the season. That's going to be an amazing basketball game. I do have a lot of faith in Memphis though this year. They're going to be darn good. But I do think the home court for Mizzou is going to play a huge factor, and this is going to be a super tight ball game throughout the course of it. If this game was at the FedEx Forum, I would probably be leaning the other way, but since it's at Mizzou Arena, I'm kind of leaning toward Mizzou, and also not having Penny is going to make a difference in this one. All right, so we just had that great matchup. Mizzou gets then a mid-major break in SIUE, and then Mizzou makes a trip up north to play the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Let's be real. Gophers look terrible, have been terrible, but it is a P6 matchup on the road. There is some optimism, though, up north from Minnesota fans. Could help the net if their optimism comes true. We'll see. Thoughts on the Minnesota game? It's kind of, I'm not super pumped on this one, I'll be honest.
I mean, to be honest, I don't know much about Minnesota basketball. I'm not even going to lie to you. The most I know is from watching them play Illinois. I don't think that Mizzou should really happen this year. But stranger things have happened when you go and play away games. In Big Ten basketball, anything can really happen.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
an early game, so maybe the students will still be bought in. What's the date on that? Is it a...
It's pretty early. I trust me, I'm reading off of the things I wrote right now, but I believe it's before the ACC SEC challenge. It'll be like somewhere around the 15th. The graphic has it on there. On the YouTube video, you can see it on the graphic right now.
So it is before they go. It's before the students leave for Thanksgiving break.
Oh, well before, yes.
So I mean, if students are bought in, you never really know if that's how it's going to be at that school. But yeah, I mean, it could be a good environment for them early on in the season still.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. At least it's a road test to get knocked out of the way early. I will say that Minnesota ranked 14th by Ross Dean in the Big Ten. It's not exactly like the only people who are optimistic about Minnesota basketball are people who live in the Twin Cities or something like that. Maddie, do you have any last thoughts before we move on from this train wreck Gopher team?
Yeah, I was just going to say, might help the net mainly because it's an away game. So they can look forward to that.
Yeah, that's the big positive. I do expect Mizzou to win that basketball game. All right, after that, we've got a list of straight shot of mid-majors. Jackson State, South Carolina State, Loyola Maryland. Guys, do you see any speed bumps there? I will note, after my mid-major research, Jackson State is going to be a pretty darn good team, so that one will be a test. But any speed bumps? No, okay, we're good. All you got to do is give me the no. And we'll just move on. All right.
Jackson State, maybe. I feel like their sports all around sports programs got a little bit better when Coach Prime was there. So I feel like they're continuing to build on that. But other than that, I don't think there's any issues there.
I think Mizzou will beat Jackson State, but like I said, Resource Nexus right now has them as probably one of the most interesting teams in the SWAC this season, one that they're projecting right now in their model to win the SWAC this season. All right. Then we got a long stretch of really, really, really good basketball games. Mizzou then plays 4 straight P7 opponents, if you include the AAC still as a power conference. I don't anymore. But only one of those games will be at home. Mizzou will start with Pitt first in the ACC SEC Challenge. Pitt, a team that made the tournament last year. Thoughts on this matchup? Personal opinion, I think this one is, while it's super interesting, I do favor Mizzou on a neutral court for sure.
I think the neutral court helps us. I think if it was an away game, I think it could.
Well, it is an away game. Let me. I'm phrased that right. I think on paper, that's what I was saying. On paper, Mizzou looks way better.
Oh yeah, because that's right. It's the SEC. It's the challenge. That's right.
Yeah.
That, I guess that changes things a little bit. No, I guess I still favor Mizzou. I think it'll be closer than what it would be if it was neutral court then. Man, it's just so hard not knowing with so many new players. I'm looking forward to finally having not being in a second year of a head coach and I don't know if this will ever happen now that the transfer portal is such a big deal in college sports.
Oh yeah.
But I'm looking forward to having a base, a base roster and getting to actually build on that, because I just don't feel like, obviously last year was a complete roster overhaul we basically had Kobe and that's all. And then this year we basically have Noah Carter and Nick Honor and Sean East. I'm looking forward to kind of having that so you can kind of play a little bit of, a little bit more of what you have going into it. Oh man. This Pitt game's hard for me. I don't know.
Yeah,
It might be the first. I could see it being a loss.
I think it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think Mizzou is the more talented team here. But this is a mid-tier ACC team, like not bottom. I mean, like straight in the middle as where they're being projected. So it is hard to even just period make one. Speaking on your base, that is going to be one of the benefits of the new transfer waiver rule this season. Got to talk about that today in NCAA law class. All right, Maddie, any thoughts on the Pitt game?
I think with Pitt, you've mentioned Minnesota was going to be their first real road test. I think this game might be their first real road test. A little higher talent level, something to kind of have to be prepared for. I feel like Pitt fans are going to show out for sure. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, they're going to have a great environment there. All right, then on that Sunday, Mizzou takes on Wichita State. That wasn't an easy matchup for the Tigers on the road last season. Very difficult game. This year, it's in Columbia. I think Mizzou wins this one, but how do you guys see it?
Well, last year was an overtime game.
Yeah,
it wasn't the buzzer beater like UCF was, but it was still an overtime game. And so that's kind of where my mind went when we were talking about Pitt, because I was thinking in my mind, I'm like, oh, that Wichita State game was like that first true road test for us, and that's kind of where my mind went to with that. So I think we take care of business of Wichita State at home, hopefully in regulation, because that was a had heart palpitations last year.
I will say, I thought that was the game. The team came together, and that's how they figured out how to beat Illinois and how they projected off of that. That was their launching pad for last season, was getting through that Wichita State game. And Wichita State's not an easy environment. So I thought that was a very key game. This year, though, I think Mizzou is going to be a little bit more, stable or ready to go for this one when you start getting to this part of the season. Maddie, any thoughts on the Wichita State game?
Yeah, I think Mizzou takes this one. As you said, last year it was on the road. I think that was the big determining factor in that game that made it so competitive. But in Como, now that Dennis Gates kind of has his I's dotted, T's crossed, they'll be ready to go this season.
All right. After that one Kansas school to the other, Mizzou takes on Kansas in the border showdown. December 9th is one of those days that is loaded with good basketball, and I don't think this game will be an exception. Now, last year, Kansas, let's just say it didn't go to plan there in Columbia last season. This year's game is in Lawrence. Jayhawks are loaded with guys like Nick Timberlake, Kevin McCullough, and the transfer of the offseason, Hunter Dickinson. Kansas is ranked number 1 in ESPN's Way Too Early, and an overwhelming 45% of coaches who were surveyed and candid coaches have them as the best team in college basketball. How do you see this going in the Fog? Everybody's just shaking their head no.
They're stacked. It's insane. So in 2021, we lost 102-64, which was embarrassing enough because it's the first year we played them again. Then last year in Columbia, where everybody is so excited. I mean, we kind of knew what we had. We were bringing in basically all mid-majors, but we're still excited about this game. 95-67. So another butt whooping. And then you look at their roster again this year. They lost Grady Dick, and they lost, what was his name? Jalen Wilson. So two
really talented
great players. But then they returned, like you said, McCullough, who had 21 points in the game. KJ Adams had 19 points. And DeJuan Harris, who is from Columbia. So he knows what this rivalry means, and he plays great in this rivalry. I mean, he didn't score a lot of points, but he knows how to take care of the ball. I just don't see us going there and stopping this team. They are so good. They're so talented. They're just oozing with talent. Yeah, I don't see us winning this game. No way.
This one's going to be hard. This is the toughest game on the schedule by far, in a way, the toughest one. Maddie, your thoughts on Kansas and Mizzou?
I said earlier in the season, probably another podcast, that recency gets you a long way in that number 1 ranking and, tenure and everything else. But I think that there's going to be more than enough talent to kind of take out Mizzou over in Lawrence, especially with the home court advantage. I'm sure Mizzou fans will travel, but it's going to be hard to beat them in a packed out home court.
Well, I know, Maddie, that we were talking about this being one of our road shows this season for the podcast. And so we're talking about going to Lawrence for this game. Really, the real reason I want to do this one is even when I was working in Kansas City, there was a journalist. I never got to go to this game. And because it didn't exist while I was there, it drove me absolutely nuts. So I'm wanting to do this and go up there. So I'm wanting to do this as one of our road trips this season for the Kansas Mizzou game. Maybe we'll see an upset. That would be make my day. Because like that would just increase the blue bloods need to be put in their place every now and then. I don't care. We can air quote rivalry all we want to between our schools that we all represent in here. But at the end of the day, sometimes blue bloods need to be put in their place, and I enjoy it. So, also I became a Kansas hater while I was worked in Kansas City. So yeah, I just get tired of Jayhawks.
Yeah, they're the worst.
I was surrounded by
them is that they're only basketball fans.
that was the crazy
loss, and they're not selling tickets to their football games. It drives me
crazy. Oh yeah. It was simply in Kansas City. It was Chiefs season, then Jayhawk season. There was no Jayhawk football season. It didn't exist. That wasn't a thing. And there's no. Yeah, there's one college sport in Kansas, and that is college basketball. It feels like. All right. I can trash talk Kansas all I want to. They're not coming to this conference, and I don't have to deal with them. All right, let's talk about the next game. All right, Mizzou heads to Kansas City, the place we were just talking about, where they will see Shahan Holloway and Seton Hall. Seton Hall finished 6th in the Big East last year. Holloway's first season as head coach there. Pretty solid coming off the St. Peter's runs. What are your thoughts on this matchup? Should be a fun one there at T-Mobile.
I think with Mizzou finally getting back in Kansas City, I think it's going to be a great environment. I think it's going to be super fun, especially for people that live in Kansas City. I'm hoping that that's a game that I get to go to. I would definitely take Mizzou in this game.
I'm feeling good about that one. Yeah, Maddie?
Yeah, I'm the same way. Going up against a first-year coach, a new team.
Second year.
My bad.
Yeah.
See, forgot about him being there last year.
It was quiet last year. It was more quiet than what a St. Peter's run was.
Exactly. So I think Mizzou walks away with this one without many problems.
All right. So from one side of the state to the other, we're going to the bragging rights game in St. Louis. Maggie, this is your area of the state. Huge game last season. Massive. Now, big names for Illinois returning this season. Coleman Hawkins, Terrence Shannon Jr., and Ty Rogers are a few names to know. Thoughts on the bragging rights game, you guys? Maggie, I will go ahead and start with you because this is your St. Louis love right here.
Yeah, so the way that I wouldn't say it's the exact same as Kansas City because Kansas City is a little bit more of a melting pot with like K-State, KU, Mizzou.
Yeah, it is. It definitely
but here
is.
It's probably, I would say, like 65% Mizzou, and then the rest of them are like Illinois and a few others. But basketball wise, I would say it's similar to like Mizzou, Arkansas, like basketball wise. Like those games are typically pretty wild, and those basketball fans, they don't like each other, and we don't like them. Like the games it's hate fueled. Like, and we played them for a long time, and it's a great rivalry. But last year, Kobe Brown had the game of his life. He had a great game. Mizzou shot 60% from the field and 50% from three. That's pretty wild. I mean, they played a near perfect game, and that's big in terms of what Kobe and Des Moines did. Like, they had great games. I think with Terrence Shannon Jr. coming back, with Sincere Harris, Dane Danger, Hawkins, I think that Mizzou doesn't take this one. Now, I thought they wouldn't take it last year, and I will say that. I thought they wouldn't take it last year. But Mizzou has taken like 3 of the last 4 or 4 of the last 5 out of this.
Yeah.
Underwood doesn't beat Mizzou very much. So that's kind of got my head like twisted a little bit. I think that Illinois could take this one just with what they return. But those first few weeks of basketball will tell me a lot about this game.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Maddie, your thoughts on this game in the Enterprise Center?
Definitely, like Maggie said, wasn't expecting Mizzou to take that one last year, but they had to have a phenomenal game to do it. So, I mean, If they can do that again, repeat as an almost perfect game, sure, I'll take Mizzou all day, every day. But I'm going to go in favor of Illinois for this one.
It's going to be a fun one. I'm sad that I had to miss that one because I'm over here enjoying Christmas with my wife's family. And, Oklahoma's not built for a snowstorm, apparently. And I had to watch it on my phone going in and out on horrible signal. It was the worst day of basketball I had experienced all season. And I have trekked in the snow to Bud Walton before for an LSU game. So, yeah, all right, let's move on to actually, we got one more to talk about. We're just going to everybody, I think we all got to win against Central Arkansas. Yes? Yeah.
Let's hope. Okay. Unless you guys know something that I don't know down there, I'll take a win.
Well, this is the reason I wanted to mention this. Central Arkansas, his brother, Connor Vanover's brother, Brandon, is one of the graduate assistants on there. That's the whole reason I wanted to note that game.
Okay. I mean, could be something up his sleeve. I don't know.
You got to beat your brother, right? Like that. I mean, all of us who have
which one? Which one has to beat their brother?
I would assume Connor in this case, at least he's on the court. Okay. Yeah, the one's a graduate assistant.
Yeah, he doesn't. I guess he doesn't have much play.
All right, so let's turn to this conference schedule. Tigers have Arkansas twice, Florida twice, Ole Miss twice, Texas A&M twice, South Carolina twice. On the road, they get Alabama, Kentucky, LSU, and Vandy. At home, Auburn, Georgia, Mississippi State, and Tennessee. Thoughts on the conference schedule? How are you guys looking at this thing? How do you see it?
I think it's a pretty tough schedule. I don't see us ending up where we ended up last year, in the 4th spot with the double bye. I don't see us ending up there. Obviously I would love for us to, but that's the highest we've ever finished. And it came down to the last game, I'm pretty sure. I think it came down to the last game. And somebody else maybe losing too. Yeah, I think that's what happened. So I don't see us ending up there. I'd see us more probably closer to the 6, 7, 8 spot, maybe probably the 7 and 8 spot. I don't see us winning at Alabama. We always have trouble with Auburn. I can see us splitting the Arkansas games again because that's what we like to do with Arkansas, win at home, lose away, blow big leads. Come back from behind. That's just how those games go. We struggle with the Mississippi State schools, struggle with Texas A&M. So I think we'll win some games we're supposed to, lose some games, or win some games we're not supposed to, lose some games that we're, you know what I'm saying. So I see us closer to like that 7, 8 spot this year.
Yeah, it's one of the things I note in the schedule, Maddie, I'll get to you this, is that there's actually a chance to start off pretty good. You do have both South Carolina games fairly early in this. And then Florida's coming to Mizzou, and that's going to be a big. Florida's supposed to be pretty good this year, and with them coming to Mizzou, I think that's an advantage for Mizzou to steal one there. Which I've got a grouping of teams right now for that 8 spot because I think there's going to be 8, and Florida versus Mizzou is going to be a really key game because I think the 3 teams that are going to be fighting for that 8 spot is Mizzou, Georgia, and Florida this season. And so that one can be crucial. Maddie, your thoughts on this schedule?
Yeah, I feel like the home and home series pretty solid. Like you said, we usually split those Arkansas games. Ole Miss is still kind of up in the air with their waivers that they're waiting on. Like David mentioned, that Florida game is going to be a tough road trip for them.
It's at home. It's at home. Yeah, it's in Columbia.
Yeah, like I meant for
Florida. Gotcha.
Like you said, South Carolina twice. Should be pretty easy wins there. And then Texas A&M, I could see them fumbling a road game. So, I mean, I feel like Mizzou kind of has it in the bag with their home and home series. I mean, with a pretty well winning schedule there. And then on the road, really with Alabama and Kentucky are the only ones I'm concerned about. And then at home, like Maggie said, usually struggle with Auburn. Georgia, I think, is a better team this year. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, I'm feeling pretty optimistic after looking at this conference schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty good in a lot of areas. There's this, like, you have good game, good win opportunity, then massive speed bump that you got to get through on each. It's a lot of stop and go this season, but we'll see how it is. All right, so I've got the number. The win total I have right now that I'm working with is 19.5. Are you guys over or under on that? Maddie, we'll start with you because I know you like to change my numbers, so I'm just going to switch the order up here on you.
I'm going to go under, but not by much. I'm going to go 19.
Okay, you're going to go 19. So that would be good enough to make the NCAA tournament in most resume years. Maggie, your thoughts?
Yeah, that's actually a really good number. I'm going to go, because we went 25 and 10, I guess 25 and 11, I think, with the tournament, I think was what it was. Yeah, I think I'm with Maddie, I think. I like 19. 19. That's a very good number.
I should work in Vegas. I'm just saying, like, that's what everyone has told me.
I think I would have went with 19 or 20 wins. So that's a very hard number. I'm going to go with Maddie. I'm going to go with 19.
Okay, 19. That would be, in most cases, in most years, good enough to put yourself on the bubble. So let's talk about those expectations this year. Maggie, we'll start with you. Where's your floor? Where's your ceiling? And what are you expecting out of this Mizzou team this season?
So I think my ceiling would probably be about, I would say about 22 wins, right around that, that 10 seeds, some 10, I guess. That'd probably get about around a 10 seed, right?
Somewhere it should be roughly around there. Yeah.
Right around there. That would probably be where I would expect like the best this team is probably going to do. I don't see us doing any better than that. I don't think we're not as good as we were last year. I don't see us being a 25 win team and getting a 7 seed. I just don't see that happening. It's without a player like Kobe, who's so dynamic. I mean, he's a first round draft pick, last pick in the first round, but a first round draft pick.
He got there.
Nonetheless, first round draft pick.
He surprised me with that. Like, I
know he surprised a lot of people. I got like a million texts when that came through. I got like a million texts. And it was funny because then all these tweets were going through like, who's Kobe Bryant, like from Clippers fans. And then after they watched him in, those like preseason or summer league or whatever, they're like, oh, he's actually good. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that the floor would probably be 15 or 16 wins. If we go below that, we're in trouble.
Yeah,
but I'm still so optimistic about what Coach Gates is bringing in. I think he has an amazing, amazing staff built around him with like Kyle Smith-Peters and Dickie Nutt and C.Y. Young. I mean, his recruiting, his recruiting staff is so amazing. Right now, we obviously have the number 1 recruiting class. I don't see that staying, but I see him staying around the top 5, somewhere around there. So, I mean, even if we have a little bit of a setback this year, I don't think that's going to make people like lose their minds and be like, oh no, Dennis Gates, I don't see that happening. I think people are pretty bought in. And if this is a little bit of a step back year, I still think everybody is bought into what he is selling. I've bought into what he is selling.
You guys ever seen that stock market chart where right before the stock goes up, it goes down a little bit and then makes it up shape? That's what I kind of feel Mizzou's doing. But Maddie, let's hear your thoughts. Where's your floor? Where's your ceiling? What's your expectation?
For Mizzou's floor, I feel like it might be more of a mentality thing that makes it harder for this team to get going. I feel like, the returners might have an expectation that there's an easy road ahead based on how well they did last season. And it could make it harder for the team to gel together. So based on that, if it does take more games than expected for them to kind of get off their feet and get going, they might have to fight to get in consideration for Selection Sunday and being on the bubble if they struggle to mesh well. Like you said, possibly bubble NIT team, if that's a possibility. Looking at maybe like 16, 17 wins for the floor. As far as the ceiling goes, I could see them winning somewhere from 21 to 22 games. If, like we said, they win some of those games that they're not supposed to and have a solid year like last year, kind of return to that winning tradition, and being maybe a solid 8 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yep, I'm with it. I'm very much in the same thought process. let's get the rough one out of the way first. I got my floor. Mizzou takes a step back this year. They fight to get on the bubble. It bursts. Puncher ticket to the NIT. For the ceiling, yeah, I'm like you, Maddie. Yeah, this team could go 21 games is what I've written down for like a ceiling, maybe 22. We'll see how they, and then pick up a few more in the SEC tournament. Talking 6 or 7 seed for the NCAA tournament is what I'm vibing with. But as far as my expectation go, and I really want to highlight this because like we talked about it a lot last season, Dennis Gates and Todd Golden were the 2 best hires 2 years ago when the mass coaching change happened in the SEC. Hi, Apollo. I see you there. But like, yeah, it's Dennis Gates is one of those coaches I've got circled in my not quite absolute trust category yet, but I've got him in my I'm really holding on to. I'm thinking you're going to make the tournament regardless of what this roster may say and under any other coach. I wouldn't have been suggesting him for the Texas job last year if it wasn't for the fact that like I didn't think Dennis Gates was a good coach. So good coaches matter in college basketball. They get you through a lot of difficult stretches. Mizzou last year shot the roof off of the building everywhere they went. All the nets caught on fire. Maybe we see more of that this season. They got a lot of guys who can shoot the ball through the transfer portal. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to rebound if you make your shots at the end of the day. So I'm a big proponent of rebounding. Kids, if you're listening to this podcast, please don't take that as advice. Please rebound the basketball. You will make your coaches rip your hair out of your heads. Trust me. I was one of them. But yeah, no, seriously.
Don't let the team you're defending get their rebound.
Yeah, exactly. Don't let them get the rebound. But overall, I think Mizzou should be pretty good this season. And like I said, I have them as one of the teams. I've got 11 teams that are possibilities, and I think 8 teams are going to make the tournament. I've got them in that circle 3, and I'm kind of vibing with a 9 or 10 seed coming into this season is what I'm thinking. All right. That's all our thoughts. I want to thank Maggie so much for being here today. Maggie, can you tell everybody where they can find you at?
Of course. You can find me on Twitter. My username is @MaggieLJohnson. You can find me anywhere you find your podcast, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, at KCSN, which is the KC Sports Network. And you can find our podcast under Mizzou That's Who.
All right. Awesome. Check out Mizzou That's Who. If you're a Tigers fan, Maggie M.I.Z. for being here today. Love the conversation. Next time on the show, we're talking about Chris Beard's first year in Ole Miss. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.